you I haven't met, my name is Debbie Aquity. I have been coaching for 4 years, like a little over 4 years, maybe almost 4.5 years. Has been the best decision I ever made in my entire life, next to marrying my husband and having children. Those were good decisions too, but this one is way up there on the scale. And so we're going to jump right in because I don't want to waste your time. So I want to ask you a question and I want you to answer in the chat, and I want you to be super honest about it. What is the one key resource that you cannot create more of? You have a limited amount of. You cannot do anything about creating more of it. And look at that. Y'all are smart. It's time. We all have 168 hours in a week. That's it. And that just seems like, oh my gosh, that's not very much time. I think that's the correct amount. Somebody can check me. But that is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this topic is because I love to be very efficient, very effective, and I love to work really smart in everything that I do because I hate wasting my time because I like to have a lot of fun. I don't want to work all day. I don't think you want to work all day. One of my major goals with being an Optavia coach is having time freedom. And if we are, completely not good at managing our time, we have no time freedom. Our calendar completely controls us. So we're going to talk about some of that tonight. But again, let me just say, in case they joined us late, Brenna, Amanda, Melissa, and Sean, that was an incredible call. Thank you so much for sharing. And Amanda, I'm going to tie back in something later on with what you shared earlier, but I think she's a client, so she might not be on here. So somebody can tell her that we shared about her example tonight. So let me do a little screen share. Since you all answered the question correctly, time is the one thing that we can't get more of. We can't create it. And we have to manage it really well so we don't waste it. So let's talk, first of all, let's do our due diligence, and we're going to do the disclosure statement. Optavia makes no guarantee of financial success. Success with Optavia results from successful sales efforts, which require hard work, diligence, skill, persistence, competence, and leadership. Please see the Optavia income disclosure statement for statistics on actual earnings of coaches. And it's right there in case you need to see it. So I'm going to talk tonight about time management and working smart. Does anybody want to learn how to work smart and not waste their time? If you do, throw it in the chat. Yes. I got to see if I can open the chat. I like to be able to see while I'm doing this, so hopefully I can. So let's talk a little bit about this quote. This kind of freaked me out. The first time I heard this, I'm like, it scared me, but I'm like, that's the absolute truth. If you fail to plan, then you should plan to fail. So think about that. I'm going to talk about Allison again. Allison tonight on the client call talked about she's going to do an Ironman sprint this year in 2022. She is challenging herself to do something she's never done before. But if she doesn't make a plan for how and when she is going to make time to make exercise a priority, to make nutrition a priority, to make, priorities in her schedule a priority, she's going to fail. So she's got to make a plan about how she's going to achieve that goal. And I know she's going to do it because she's already talking about it. She's putting it out there. But just remember, if you fail to plan, then you should plan to fail. Does anybody here want to fail? Put a 5 in the chat if you have no desire whatsoever to fail in this business. Let me see if I got some people that agree. Failing is no fun. None of us want to fail at anything we ever do. If you did, you're probably with the wrong group because we are all about achieving goals. So I'm going to talk a little bit about controlling your calendar, because if you don't control your calendar, guess what? Your calendar is going to control you. And just looking at this calendar with all these numbers and all these colors and all this stuff, it gives me a little bit of anxiety. I like things to be in order. When I was raised, before I raised my kids, before they came into the picture, I was pretty OCD about things. Then I had kids and I kind of lost control for a little while, and then realized, gosh, I really like to have things in order now that I'm an empty nester again. I kind of like the order, but even when I had kids here, I had some semblance of order in some areas that were top priority. And I'm hoping to give you some direction with that as well tonight. So control your calendar, or your calendar can control you. So let's talk about the power of 15-minute time blocking. I am such a huge fan of time blocking, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Those are kind of the two key things that I pretty much time block all the time. So I want you guys to picture this with me. Okay. What do you see when you see this photograph? Tell me some things, throw some things in the chat. What do you see? And I just want you guys to visualize. It's a Saturday morning. Your family is just hanging out. You're being super casual. Nobody's doing anything. There's colors on the floor. There's crafts on the floor. It's a total disaster. It's a total mess. Nobody is motivated. Nothing is getting done. Imagine the kitchen. There's dirty dishes in the sink. There's laundry everywhere. You're still in your pajamas. Your kids are still in their pajamas. And then you get a phone call. And all of a sudden, you get this phone call, and it's one of your good friends who says, "Hey, I am in your area and I would love to come over and see you and your family. I'm going to be there in about 15 minutes. Is that okay?" And you say in your sweetest little voice, like, "Oh, sure. We would love to see you." And then you turn around and you're like, "Oh my gosh," you hang up the phone. You go into absolute total panic attack, drill sergeant mode. But what happens 15 minutes later when that doorbell rings? Your friend walks in the house. The house is sparkling and shining and clean. The toys are put away. The laundry's put away. The dishes are put away. You've gotten dressed. Your family's gotten dressed. You've made lattes and an egg quiche for breakfast for you and your friends. And you only had 15 minutes, but you got it done. So can I just say there is so much power in 15-minute increments. So I'm going to come off here for a little bit and share a couple things. If I said to you, I'm looking at Allison again, you're on my screen. I'm going to pick on you tonight. If I said, "Allison, you have all day to write these 10 thank you notes," if somebody said to me I had all day to get it done, I would probably take the entire day to get it done because I had all day. But if they said, "You got 30 minutes, you got to get these 10 thank you notes done, you got 30 minutes, I'd get them done in 30 minutes because I had a time limit. I had some urgency. I had some motivation. And the difference between those two Saturday morning pictures is motivation and time limits. And when you can give yourself a time limit to do some things, you're going to get very effective and very efficient at what you get done. And you're not going to waste any time, especially when it's things you don't like to do. I'm going to tell you a funny story. I did another business before this business for 20 years. I sold jewelry. And one of our leaders, oh my gosh, she was so funny. But I remember her saying she always was really good about doing some of the things she didn't like to do. And one of the things she didn't like to do was call people to schedule events and shows. She just hated doing that. And I was like, "But you're so good at it. Like, how do you get the motivation to always do that?" And she goes, "Oh, I'll tell you what I do. I put on pantyhose, and I can't take my pantyhose off until I've made a certain number of phone calls in my office," because she hates pantyhose. And I was like, "Well, whatever it takes, whether it's a timer, whether it's doing something you don't really want to do, giving yourself a time limit, or maybe putting yourself in a situation that you're like, I just want to get out of this, might be a motivation. You might need something different. I don't know. For her, it was pantyhose. So I know the guys on the call, actually, if you put on pantyhose, you'd be pretty motivated to get those babies off as well. So whatever it takes to get those hard things done as quickly as you can. And if there's that book or that quote called "Eat the Frog." And I know that just sounds so gross, but eat the frog means do the hard things first, and then everything else you do after that comes easy and it's fun, and you're in momentum and you're in action, and you want to keep going and keep checking things off your list. So do those hard things, get those done, eat that frog, and you're going to be like, "I'm on a mission. I'm going to go down to the next thing on my to-do list today." So I really want to encourage you. All the things that we do, for example, in like a power hour, can be done in 15 and 30-minute blocks of time throughout your day. I know sometimes people say, "Well, I can't get on power hour. I don't have an hour." Well, that's okay. You can look at the activities that we do in a power hour, maybe watch a recording of one if you can't be on live, and then go do those things in 10, 15, 20-minute increments throughout your day. You're going to be blown away by what you accomplish by the end of the day. And your business is going to be moving forward, and you're going to be in action. And when you're in action, it makes you want to stay in action. When you're not in action, it's very easy to just settle in and lose momentum. So we want to create momentum. And especially with those things you don't want to do them first. And I guarantee you, it gives you the energy to keep going. So something that we do, talking about those 15 and 30-minute time blocks, something that my husband and I both do. We both coach full time. We didn't used to, we did other jobs in addition to this. And for those of you that work full time, a lot of you if you can do time block clusters, I think it can make things really efficient. What I like to do is work, maybe like take a 2-hour window of time and do 4 30-minute calls in that 2-hour window. So then I'm kind of working and focused and, really thinking about things. Like maybe I might do all my client calls in this little window of time. And then I can take my brain off and do something else, maybe go for a walk, maybe go to the gym, maybe do something different. So it's not like a half an hour here, half an hour there, and a half an hour there through the day. It's clustered together. I'm in the zone, and then I can get out of the zone and have a little bit of harmony and balance in my day. So you don't feel like you're doing it all day. You're doing it in chunks of time, and it kind of keeps you in that mindset. So I try to do all my client calls on the same day and all my coach calls, because we work with a lot of coaches, on certain days of the week, so I can stay in that mindset. So if you're a new coach and you're like, I have all these clients, I don't know how to support them, I don't know how to call them, we have an amazing training on client support. And we also, I know Michelle did the training on client support. Karen Thorngrid did a great training on time management, which is a little different than the one that I'm doing tonight. And you might get ideas from both of them. Go back through the files and watch them, because I think you're going to get some good value. So our schedule, we always time block 2 hours on, maybe an hour or two off, and then back on, and just kind of plan our day around that. And then we can kind of prioritize what else we want to do during the day. And we're not working all day long, and we have harmony. Harmony is a beautiful world. Balance is challenging. Harmony is attainable, because you're going to have to give and take, and balance means it's always perfect. Harmony might mean a little bit of this. And so I like to live in harmony. Some days I work more than other days, but I'm always touching my business every single day, doing something every single day, touching it to make it keep growing. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about those of you, raise your hand, not raise your hand. I feel like I'm in school. Put a 1 in the chat if you have little shadows, meaning children under the age of 5 in your home currently that you are caring for. Not like tonight, but like you are a stay-at-home mom, or you have children under the age of 5. Look at all of you. Wow, wow, wow. I'll pray for you. Mine are all older now, but boy, do I remember those days. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I talked about this, or I did this business, or this type of a business, for 20 years with my kids as they were growing up, from newborns through college now. And not this business, but another one. And I learned a lot. And I want to share a couple things specifically with those of you that are with small kids at home. But those of you who don't have small kids, don't tune me out and don't stop paying attention, because you may not have them home right now, but you may have a coach on your team who has small kids at home, or you may end up having grandkids someday that you're taking care of. So this is going to come back around and hopefully have some value for you. So let's talk about the reality of working with those small kids, and how many of you can relate to that? That image. Oh, hang on. Let me get there. New PowerPoint system. And there. Look at that. Like that, to me, I was like, oh, that was so me for a long time, until I learned some tricks I'm going to teach you tonight. Just going, how am I going to do this? And so many of you now, especially with the last couple of years, have a lot of kids at home that weren't home before, and you're trying to homeschool, and you're trying to manage their calendars, and it can be absolutely challenging. So I'm going to give you some really practical tips that helped me, that I really hope will help you to manage that. So first and foremost, get a hands-free phone. Invest in some AirPods or a headset, because when your hands are free and you can put your AirPods on, put your phone in your pocket, you can multitask and take care of those little ones, maybe while you're doing some client calls and all that. That might seem like common sense, but so many people, I think, don't realize how important that can be. And it's good for your back and your posture. Nothing's worse than trying to hold the phone while you're trying to talk on the phone. The next one, this may be the best advice that anybody ever gave me when I was a young mom with all these little kids. I had 3 little shadows under the age of 5 following me everywhere I went, and I had a really hard time getting anything done. So I had a special toy basket that was clear, and I had a special basket of toys. It was see-through intentionally, and I filled it with toys. Each of my kids had their own little basket, and I put toys in there that they could play with for 30 minutes. And for 30 minutes, I set a timer, and I would go and do what I needed to do for 30 minutes and let them play with their toys for 30 minutes. And they were toys that didn't involve me. So for example, I had daughters. I did not put Polly Pockets in the toy box, because I'd have to put the shoes on the Polly Pockets, and that was time consuming, and it took me to do it. So things your little ones, depending on their age, could do all by themselves. And then about every month, I would throw in a couple new toys from Target or the dollar store or whatever. So it was always fresh and new. But the key is you set a timer for 30 minutes. When that timer goes off, that box goes up on top of the fridge or somewhere where they can see it, but they can't get to it. And I'm gonna tell you, my kids would be like, Mommy, are you making calls today? Mommy, are you working today? And I was like, yes, I am. At 2 o'clock, I'm gonna make my calls. And they would beg me to get on the phone instead of beg me for everything while I was on the phone. Instead of like, Mom, I got no interruptions for 30 minutes. And then when that timer went off, the toys went up. I came out, I engaged with them. We did a snack, or we'd go for a walk, or we would do some activity that would take, full presence from me. And then 30 minutes, a timer would go off, a toy box might come back down, and then I could go back and do a little bit more of my work. So it was really helpful to have that on, off. I didn't feel guilty in either place, and my kids were happy and I was happy. And then the other thing we did, especially for those of you in warmer climates, those of you in Nebraska and where I live up north, we only could do this certain months of the year, but I would take 3 buckets of water because I had 3 kids, 3 paintbrushes. We would go sit on my deck, and I would say, you can paint anything. You can paint the deck, you can paint the windows, you can paint the siding, the furniture, the grill. You can just paint anything you want with water. And then they loved it. They would paint and paint and paint, and then it would dry up. And I would say, you can do it again. And then I'm like, my kids maybe weren't super smart because they just did it over and over and over. And I could make a million phone calls while they were happy playing with water and paintbrushes, and it entertained them for hours. Another little thing that entertained them was a bucket, or like a little, Tupperware dish of coffee beans, or not coffee beans, like lima beans, and little dump trucks. And they would play forever with the dump trucks and the lima beans. Even my girls did that. And I was like, who knew that such a simple toy could be so much fun, but it entertained them. And I could take that anywhere I needed to go. Another little thing you might want to do is, if you have other coaches in your area that have kids of the same age, swap. If you're going to do your client calls on Monday and they're going to do their client calls on Tuesday, take turns watching each other kids. And then your kids are going to become friends, and they're going to love it, and they're going to want you to work. That's the whole thing. And then the next thing I want to talk about is you need to know when to hire help. There's going to be a point in your business, if you're building your business, where you might get to a point where you go, okay, I'm okay right here, but if I want to grow it anymore, I might have to hire some help to do a few of the things that maybe I don't have to personally do every day. So I'm going to give you an idea of some things that maybe you might want to consider hiring some help for down the road. Maybe not yet, but maybe down the road. What is your time worth, and when it's time to hire help? So I love it when you can make a list of things. Take a piece of paper, put a line down the middle. These are the things anybody can do in my business. These are the things only I can do. This advice is for even those of you that don't have small kids at home. This is for every coach here, because there are certain things that you can probably outsource that don't have to take your time and energy. So you can do the things that really build your business. So for example, I started the list for you. Branding posts on Facebook, you can hire that done. Commenting A to Z, somebody else could do that for you. My daughter does it for me. Adding friends on Facebook, my daughter does that for me. Working off your 100s list, doing your yard work. Seriously, how much is, actually my husband loves to mow. He's crazy like that, but we've been busy working and coaching, and now we have someone that does our yard work for us oftentimes. Cleaning your house. What a great gift to bless somebody else financially. Let them clean your house and you can focus on work. Carpooling to practice. Let somebody else drive your kids. And grocery delivery services are everywhere now. Take advantage of them. And you're going to save money because you're not buying stuff you shouldn't be grabbing off the shelf anyways. And then things that only you can do might be your personal posts, your health assessments, client support calls, celebration calls, strategy calls with your mentors, date night with your hubby. Hopefully you're not outsourcing that, and the big game. So here's what I want to say real quick about this. My kids all played in sports or did show choir or drama or all those different things. I did not go to every practice. Now, there was a time when I could go to some of the volleyball practices and make calls and do things from the car. But most of the time I had them ride with someone else, or I would drop them off and go and do my work, because you don't have to be at every practice, but you can make it a priority on your calendar to be at the big games, be at the most important events, those championship games. I didn't even go to every game because I was trying to build a business, and this was a priority for my whole family. And sometimes I had to make a sacrifice or two, and it was all worth it in the end. So let's talk a little bit about this being a family business, which is what I love about it. Everybody can get involved in this business, and it can be so much fun to work with your family, around your family, and make them a part of your business. First of all, I think it's really fun to have a family meeting with your family and say, hey, here's some of the goals that that I have to build this business this year. And I need everybody to be on board with some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. So when they know that you've got a goal, but then maybe they have something that they might get from it, I think they might be a little bit more interested. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say your spouse loves to travel or would love to have a sailboat, or maybe that Harley Davidson. What about if you kind of had a separate little fund where you were like, what are some really important things to my spouse that I could start investing in, or I could start setting aside money in, so that dream that that spouse has could become a reality someday. And you could start really kind of chipping away at that. And that, I think, makes them go, okay, this is worth it. The sacrifice they're making, maybe they're, yeah, you could retire early, right, Amy? Maybe they want to go on, trips and things like that with you, and you're having to work a little bit extra. So they know that in the end, there's a goal that you're all working towards. And then with your kids, here's a fun thing you can do with them. So what we used to do with our kids was we would take a picture of a toy that they loved at the toy store, or maybe it was a trip to Disney that we were all working towards. And I knew if I did this many events from my other business, I could go to that Disney park or whatever. So we would print a blank sheet, and I would say, okay, every time for you guys, it might be every time I sign up a new coach, every time I sign up 10 clients or whatever it might be, they got to color in one of those little sections until the whole picture was filled in. And you could obviously buy a picture or print a picture that has more sections, or you could do 10 pictures that kind of build up to a really fun goal. But that gets those little kids involved. You can put those pictures on the refrigerator, so they're like, ooh, I'm almost to my third picture, and Mom, are you working tonight? Mom, are you doing this today? And it just gets your kids involved, and they're going to encourage you, and they're not going to be hurt when you're not there. It just seems like everybody gets on board for it, and it makes a huge difference. And while we're on that note, let's talk a little bit about the impact you're leaving on your kids. This is the last thing I'm going to share is, I know sometimes people are like, gosh, I feel guilty. I work a full-time job, and then I feel guilty when I'm at home and I have to be on the call for an hour, or a training for an hour, or do this or that. First of all, if you have calendar control and you're planning ahead, you should be in control of your calendar, so you're not having to be spontaneously called out, and your family knows maybe Tuesday and Thursday are your work nights, and that's what you protect. And those are the times you work, and otherwise you can plan family things. But when your kids see you being an entrepreneur, being your own boss, working towards goals, working towards time freedom and financial freedom, and dreaming big and encouraging them to do the same thing, is that a bad thing? Like, what better gift could you give your kids than the gift of being an entrepreneur and seeing value in work ethic and value in setting goals and sacrificing and working towards goals? We are so blessed to be able to do this business and be able to have the freedom and the financial freedom and the time freedom and the things that the flexibility that we have. So I don't want you to feel guilt when you are working, especially if you're working full time and you're like, you feel that if you're really being smart about scheduling things out, there is no guilt. And if you can make it fun for your kids, get your kids involved, make it a family thing. It is way more fun when your kids are like, are you working today? Are you going to do this today? What are you doing today? My kids practically like pushed me into my office, pushed me out the door because they wanted to play with that box of toys, or they wanted to go on that trip or get that toy. And they knew if I was doing my part, they got closer to their goal. So involve everybody. And that can be you and your spouse, you and your family, whoever it might be. I just want you to have the tools to work really smart. Not just hard. We all work hard, but let's work smart at the same time and be an example to our kids. Because for those of you that are maybe new to coaching, I hope that you've gotten the impression that we dream pretty big in Optavia. I have learned, well, I have it right there, right here in my office. Dream big. And that is something I tell everybody to do. Dream bigger than you have ever dreamt before, because what you have in your hands here is an incredible vehicle to impact your life in ways you never thought possible. I share the income disclosure statement. You can go back to that to read that. Never thought possible. And it could impact your family in ways that you never dreamed, where you could have that freedom and the time to do some things and build relationships. And it's also worth it, but you got to take control of your calendar now so you can have all those things later. And it might mean that you have to be in the messy season now, work a little extra now, knowing that eventually you're going to have massive time freedom down the road. So I just thank you so much for letting me share tonight. I hope for those of you with that crazy schedule and families and all that stuff, got a couple tools that are practical. Go get that toy box tomorrow. I promise you it'll change your world. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, thanks to the client call was phenomenal. And we just want you to keep dreaming big and work smart. Thanks, guys. See you later.